everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 6 of Skip and Loafer, halfway through the season. What? It's so weird. It feels like we just started. How are we halfway through? But yeah, so I have a lot of comments I want to talk about as we dive in. Last episode was all about Igashira, whose name I finally have somewhat correct. And I really loved that episode. We've been talking in the comments about it, but just the idea that Igashira started out as this kind of one-dimensional character that I was like, oh, she's going to be an archetype. She's going to be the mean girl, the jealous girl that's in love with Shima and is going to be Mitsumi's like frenemy. But honestly, I'm so impressed with the way that this show has taken something that could be very, very stereotypical and made her into this three-dimensional character that you not only can relate to on multiple levels, but that is actually you kind of root for too. Like I don't want her to get with Shima. I guess I wouldn't be opposed to it. I thought about that today. I was like, because somebody had brought it up. I think it was H Banana brought it up in the comments, saying, and this might have been someone else, but saying like, is there a possibility, if Mitsumi wasn't around, would we root for Igashira getting with Shima? And I'm like, I kind of would. So that's kind of weird, right? Because I usually get very defensive of my ships. Like when they're like Mitsumi and Shima, I'm like, I just want to root for them and nobody else. And I'm like, stay away from them. But honestly, yeah, I kind of would have rooted for her and him if Mitsumi wasn't there. So if Mitsumi and Shima end up staying friends platonically and Igashira moves in, am I really going to be mad at her? I don't know. I guess not. But I don't know what this story is going to do, right? I don't know what route they're going to go on, because I feel like if they're going to hint at a romance with Shima and Mitsumi, it obviously isn't going to come to fruition this season. It's going to be like a Nozaki-kun thing where they're going to leave you. They're going to edge you all season. They're just going to edge you all season and then not give you the satisfaction. But I feel like maybe over the course of this season, Mitsumi will begin to develop or recognize her feelings for Shima. Maybe. I don't know. I'm curious to see how they're going to handle that, but I really am loving the character work that this little fluffy slice of life is giving us. I'm like, yes, please. You just keep doing your thing. But I do have some comments. Shimoyama, patron Shimoyama, talked about how the beautification committee, I was like, what do they do? Because it seems just like a beauty school thing. But no, the beautification committee at Japanese schools are basically in charge of keeping the school clean and advocating for maintenance of the facilities. They're basically like this squad of people making sure the school looks not like shit. And I'm like, wow, I feel a little bit bad now for underestimating them. So that was good to know. Thank you, Shimoyama. H Banana 7 talks about Atsuatsu Tariku, which was the show they mentioned back in episode 3. It's actually a parody of a program that's in Japan that apparently dives into the center of various professions throughout various fields. So it's kind of like just making fun of that type of show. So that's interesting. K.A. talks about Yuzuki. Yuzuki's voice actor is a character from Chainsaw Man that I don't want to be spoilery, but I was just like, so yeah, the only thing I could say is that the character Angel in Chainsaw Man is voiced by the same voice actor as Yuzuki, and that kind of floored me, and I was like, oh my gosh, gagged. So also Yamada, okay, mind blown, because I always think that Murase is like it's like Ayasu. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get the name wrong. Murase. I always feel like they should be a typecast voice actor, but then they do like chameleon roles where you're like, wait, you're that character? So if you don't know who Murase is, you might know him as Shoyo from IQ, or Skip from Banana Fish, which is where I first came in contact with them. Or, you may know them as Udo from Attack on Titan. But yeah, Murase is basically Yamada, the character that's kind of like really wanting to get with Yuzuki. But also the fact that last episode focused on volleyball, it's kind of hilarious that they are Shoyo. I'm like, oh my gosh, who knew? So I thought that was cool. And then Kanachika is the same voice actor as Kisei from Kuroko's Basketball. And I was like, as well as Bokudo from Haikyuu. And also Kumai from Psycho Pass. Or Kamui from Psycho Pass. So Isn't that fun? So I do love voice actors and how they kind of like, some of them can be typecast, but then some kind of do these like chameleon roles and you're like, who are you? So that's amazing. And then finally, MPEG. MPEG had this really, really cool post back around episode 3. So if you get a chance to go check it out, episode 3, it's on there, talking about complicated gender terms in Japanese, which I'm an English speaker, so I know nothing about Japanese. I know about haranga and I know about, there's 3 different alphabets, but I don't know any Japanese at all. But they were talking about how it's really complicated, that there is a way to do a neutral gender term in Japanese, but it's a little bit complicated. They talked about how there is no translation for sibling. So in trying to explain Nao's relationship, I guess what they said was that in the Japanese original, in the original text, they call Nao the brother of the dad instead of recognizing that Nao is female presenting, right? Is female, is trans. And so they talked about how there's a really complicated gender neutral term, but there's no translation for sibling in Japanese, right? Because sibling is a very gender neutral term in English. Brother is kyodai, sister is written as shimai, and the neutral would be keimai or shitai. And this kind of becomes a little bit more complicated if you're talking about an older sibling versus a younger sibling. So I like the fact that there's kind of these hybridized terms that could kind of talk about gender neutrality, which is interesting. I love the idea of progressing and recognizing like fluidity with gender and understanding like how we complicate who we are in our identities. And I love that language. That's kind of why I love teaching English, because English is a very good example, if you've ever studied English, of a language that just kind of evolves as it goes, and it makes things up and it replaces things, it keeps certain things, it ditches other things. It's a language that just kind of changes as time goes, for better or for worse. And I kind of like it though. I like that it's not something fixed. It's something that is fluid. It may take it a while to change, but it can eventually change. And I like that. So I thought that was really neat. So thank you, MPEG, for noting that. And thank you all for the comments. I thought those were really, really cool. But we have wasted enough time. We're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right in and just see what episode 6 gives us. So I'm super excited, y'all. I hope you all are as well. So I'm going to get this episode ready here in just a second. See what we get. I'm like trying not to get the sound to turn on. I know you all are in suspense, like, come on, winch, get it going. So we're going to start episode 3 of Skip and Loafer. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh my God. These two. I kind of am so torn, because at the end when Shima was like, it's great to have a friend that's a girl like you, I was like, oh no, Shima's totally friend zoning her, which is so funny because you would think that Mitsumi would be the one friend zoning. But here's the thing. What I kind of like about Mitsumi and Shima's relationship is I totally think you can start out with friendship as a foundation for a relationship. And I think arguably some of the best relationships start out as a friendship and build from there, because you have that foundation of, okay, even if there's not, physicality, there is a foundation there that you can build from, right? If sometimes when a relationship is just physicality, but there's no foundation between you and the other person, then it's kind of like this lofty house of cards. And yeah, it's going to work for a while, but does it have sustainability? But if you start with this foundation, then you can build off of it. And so I really, it's like my heart is torn, where the shipper and romantic in me doesn't want Shima to friend zone Mitsumi, but on the other hand, they're only first years in high school. That's the thing too. A lot of, romance, high school, slice of life anime, they're like third years and they develop the relationship. Or it could be like Sasaki and Miyano, where like Sasaki's a second year, Miyano, or Sasaki's a third year, Miyano's a second year, and there's like a year age gap. So one's going to go off to university probably, and one's going to stay behind, and their relationship is going to have to overcome that distance and that hurdle. But here they're both first years, so they got to develop through all 3 years. So it's like, you know, there is the possibility you have to kind of brace yourself being like, is the mangaka going to say, no, they're going to be friends for the first couple years. And then that third year when there's that, you know, whenever they're about to graduate and decide what to do with their lives, then the romance is going to come out. So it's like, it's just, I want to have faith in the mangaka being like, you're not going to give us like some angsty sad ending, are you? Where they don't end up together. But I need to like, it's hard because you want to have faith in the mangaka and be like, okay, I'm going to put my trust in the creator's hands that they're going to steer us the right way. I just, there's so many people that like angst. A lot of people like their angst in their fiction and they're like, oh yeah, angst. I'm like, I like angst with a happy ending. Like I can do a little bit of angst as long as there's a happy ending at the end. But if there's not a happy ending, I'm like, ugh. So I don't know, man. It's hard. But so yeah, let's go through this episode with Fumi. Fumi is a catch. Fumi is a great girl, and she's talking to Mitsumi about the guy that she likes. And Mitsumi is like, "What? We're at that age where people are gonna." I like how she says we're at that age where we're gonna start developing relationships. Like she's an old 30-year-old woman. Oh, you're at that age now, you know. The reason I said the bisexual hydrangeas at the beginning of this because the hydrangeas have like the red, maroon, and the purple, and the lavender, and the blue, which is kind of like they're the color of the bisexual flag and everything. I only say that because I watched another series called Buddy Daddies that has a lot of subtext in it for romance. It's subtextual. But they had the hydrangeas here and they were kind of like the bisexual hydrangeas. And I remember I commented that and someone got very, very flustered and offended. They're like, they're not just bisexual. That's just the color of hydrangeas. I'm like, they grow in different pH balances, use science. But I was just like, they got so offended that I was calling hydrangeas bisexual that I just stick with it now. Which, you know, it is common for this color scheme to occur, but the colors of the hydrangeas are determined by the pH balance. So it's very kind of uncommon for them to all be different colors because that suggests like multiple pH balances in the soil. I don't know. I'm not an agronomist. It just seems like it would make sense that way. But anyway, I like the idea that the hydrangeas are kind of associated with romance. I like that they're kind of a symbolic representation of that one. And then I like that, you know, Mifumi talking about the guy that she likes being like, he's really funny. And she's like, well, what's love like? You know, what is it? I like that Mitsumi's like, I've never been in love, so I don't know exactly what that's like. How does that work? And Fumi's like, oh, well, you know, you just kind of, she's like, for me, I like that Fumi says for me. Fumi is so open-minded and says, you know, when she says for me, like her love is not going to be the same as Mitsumi's love. And that's kind of a nice point they bring about in this episode, saying like how people fall in love and how they develop relationships are not universal. They're not a one-size-fit-all thing. So she's like, well, I said this guy is fun. I like him. And she's like, and then I started to notice that I got excited to see him at school. And then, you know, she's like, I'd get nervous whenever I talked to him and I'd want to leave mid-sentence. And I keep worrying about things I was going to say. And Mitsumi's like, that sounds really complicated. And she says that she's never fell in love before, but she's like, assuming I fall in love someday, you know, how am I going to handle this? And I like that she's like, I should go ask Mako-chan and Yuzu-chan when I get to class and talk about this. And that's when she realizes that the exams are happening. Okay, the final exam syllabus. I freaking love the teacher. The teacher I can relate to so much. I would probably be like this teacher. I don't think I'm as, I would like to say in my class prep, I don't think I'm as lazy as this woman has a reputation of being. But some of the phrases she says, I have said that where she's like, you guys know the drill. I've said that in class many times. And she's like, you know, club activities are suspended through exam period and you're prohibited from entering the faculty office. I also love that at this school, and maybe this is a Japanese trend, you're prohibited from entering the faculty office during exam periods where she's like, you can't bug us because you didn't study. That's so funny. So funny to me. And she's like, if you have questions, ask for us and wait outside. She's like, when she said, do your best and close out the first half of the first school year with a smile. I have said these words to a class that looked exactly like this one, that looked like they wanted to rip their hair out. They were like, are you freaking serious? And I'm like, yes. I was like, don't worry, everyone. I've been there too. And they just glare at you like, that's not helping. I love this teacher. She is, as a teacher myself, I relate to her so hardcore. I love her to pieces. And then she's like, the day has come. I love Mitsumi. It's just like, the day has come. The choir, the orchestral choir plays in the background. The angels are singing. There's like demonic flames. And Mitsumi's like, yes. Like, that girl, her and the teacher are like girls after my own heart. I love it. But I kind of get where Mitsumi comes from, where she says she's ninth in the class, which is great. But I get where she's coming from, where she worries about Shima, right? And she wants him to be there with her. And I'm glad that she's honest at the end, where she's like, it's not that, she's like, I don't care, she's like, I'm not trying to dictate what you do with your future, and you do you. But she's like, it's boring when you're not here, and I don't want you to drop out. And I care about you, and I'm concerned about you. But it's not because of your choices, it's because I want you here. Like, I'm glad that she's honest with him about it. And miscommunication in anime is like my least favorite trope. I'm like, if y'all just talk it out, 99% of these problems could be solved. And so I'm glad that they actually, in this episode, talked it out and got to the root of the issue. And they both addressed on their sides what they were worried about, right? Because Shima is very concerned, oddly enough, about his perception to Mitsumi because she's his friend. He's like, he doesn't care what other people think about him. Like, when he talks to her about the stories, he's like, I don't care what stories these people make up about me. They don't matter, and they can say whatever rumors they want. He's like, but I didn't want you, someone I care about, to think something of me that wasn't true. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh. And he's like, because he cares about her, right? And I that whole big heart, like Mitsumi, I understand, because like, it's not that, my friends, I want the best for them. It's not that I want them to have the same expectations that I do, or to be as driven as I am, but I still care about them and want them to have the experiences, and to be present, right? I also love that Kunimi, every time we see her, she's always drinking something. Kunimi is just like drinking a juice box or something everywhere she goes. And then Yuzuki is just like, oh, didn't we just have exams? And Mitsumi's like, I'm so excited. Mitsumi is like, I need Mitsumi in the Death Note universe. I just want a crossover of Mitsumi and Light Yagami taking over the world together. Can we have them do this? Has someone wrote this fan fiction? Can I write this fan fiction? If I had time, I would. Because I just, anytime she's up there with her arms crossed looking smug about academics, she reminds me of Light Yagami from Death Note. And there's just no other comparison. She was born ready. I also like that there's this guy in the background with the purple spiky hair. He looks like he's the main character from A Silent Voice. Can we cross over those two universes? Can that be a thing? And I like that Kunimi and Yuzuki are like, she's a good role model, even if it can be irritating how upfront she is. Now, when Mitsumi talks about how she's worried for Shima-kun feeling sick and she feels bad for him, I love that she's like, maybe I should text him. And, he might want the exam syllabus. I like that Kunimi and Yuzuki, they kind of both, like, look away and start in their pocky stick, like, girl has it bad. Like, they know. They know. Igashira knows. They know. They're both like, oh, she likes him. But she's the only one that isn't aware until this episode. They're like, we're 2 weeks away. Why are you texting him? And I like that Yuzuki's eating the pocky stick and just, it's like, that'd be the last thing I'd want to see if I was sick. So, it's one of those things where, and Mitsumi also, I can relate to so hardcore because, I text novels. When I text my friends, it is a novel. It's like, hey, what are we doing? And my best friend texts back, like, we're writing novels to each other. We don't do this whole, like, okay, see ya, bye, good. No, we write, like, full-blown sentences, like, just hardcore. And her text is, good morning, Shima-kun. Since they said you were out sick, are you okay? It's such an important time, too. That sucks. The final exam syllabus gets announced today, so if you want to know, I'll tell you. It'll include material from the midterms, so I'll be sure that it'll be a lot, but I'll show you the notes while you're out sick, so don't worry about that. Just focus on resting well and taking care of yourself. Get well soon. It is the most, like, drawn out, long-winded text, and he responds with, like, a teddy bear, like, ripping open the doors. And what does he say? I wanted to read this text back. And he says, was asleep. Morning. Was asleep. That's just like, girl. Uh-huh. And then what else does he say there? He's like, I woke up late, so I was just like, whatever. So don't worry, I'm fine. Thanks, though. Smiley face. The way that Shima writes the text, though, it is a little passive-aggressive. Like, when he's like, I was just like, whatever. I'm fine. Thanks, though. Like, I get what he's saying, and it's fine, but that just, I think Shima is slightly self-aware that he can be a bit passive-aggressive, and he can be a little bit cold. Like, some of the ways he said some of the lines in this episode, I was like, oh, that tone was instantly like, oh, you don't want to talk about this. And he lets Mitsumi see it. And the thing about it is that I think Shima might be noticing, and why he values Mitsumi's friendship so much is because he can be cold to her and she doesn't run away. Like, he shows her a little bit more of like his passive aggressiveness or his cold side to him, where he can be a little bit like, oh, that was a little bit chilly. And she doesn't run. Instead, she's just as concerned as she would be if he was acting like he is around the other girls. And I think that's why he's so, like, he values their relationship so much, because she's not like the other girls that are just trying to be flowery and being like, tee-hee. She, like, actually wants to know him. And that's, the show does such a good job of portraying that. And she's like, since they said he called in sick. And they're like, he probably just went back to sleep, right? And so then we get Mukai. I like Mukai a lot. I like that Yamada's just really doesn't have a dog in this fight, but Yamada's just hanging out. But Mukai is like, oh, he doesn't cancel plans with friends, but sometimes he'd silently skip stuff if it wouldn't bother anybody. And I wondered in this episode if maybe he kind of like suffers from depression a little bit, because it sounds kind of like he does. Like, I don't know. Not the idea of skipping stuff with friends, but the idea of just not going to things. The idea, like, but the thing about it is not even his friends know the full story, it seems. And Mitsumi's getting like more than some of these people get in terms of information, because he tells her at the end that he doesn't have a very active home life. He doesn't really have a family that bonds or stays together. So he doesn't seem like he's happy there. So he goes and stays with the one guy who he knows from childhood acting. And the one guy, because they've known each other since they were kids, that's why their bond is like it is. And so, but the way that the one friend talked, we'll get to that scene and talk about it. But it does seem like maybe he just does really kind of have maybe a little bit of depression. I don't know. I feel like at some point in our lives we can say that we've had moments where we were depressed, but I can't full on say, oh, I've had depression. I can't say that because I don't believe that I have. I've had moments where I was depressed and felt down, but I can't say it's like it was a chronic thing, you know? But that's interesting. And he's like, if it doesn't bother anybody, he skips stuff. And Mitsumi's like, skip stuff? Wouldn't bother anybody. It bothers me, because she wants him around, because she values him and she likes his company. And then, you know, a lot of the other girls are like, oh, did you go to the same middle school? And they just kind of shove her away. Is it true that 1 in every 3 girls asked him out? Like, there's all these rumors, and Mukai is just like the best friend, right? Mukai's such a good friend that's like, I don't know, no comment. Mukai's a friend, right? But they come up with all these stories like about how he like has a black belt and tossed people out, and then he enjoys the nightlife. We'll say Shima in that pink shirt with the fedora and everything, he looks like a cross between Laurent from Great Pretender and Soul Eater Maka's dad. He looks like a combination between Laurent from Great Pretender and Maka's father from Soul Eater. Ridiculous. But yeah, you know, and just, I love that she has in her mind that I heard he was dating a magazine model from another school. She's like, magazine model? Which, we don't, you know, for all we know, the magazine model, the nightlife is technically that he goes to visit a friend's house. The toss somebody means that he could have gotten in a fight at some point and it got exaggerated. The magazine model, if he was a child actor, he might know people that are in the acting agency that just casually talk to him. That's like often a trope where you think he's dating someone, but it's really like an agent or something, and she's like 30, and it's like, no, not really. So all these could be true just from different perspectives, and he's like, I don't know. And then Mitsumi's like, man, is he a bad boy? I love that he instantly has like the Negan bat with nails through it and like the Kuwabara style Yakuza, except it's purple. Oh my God. Absolutely hilarious with like the blood on it. Good to know that Mitsumi is not into a bad boy. And then she has a daydream where his jacket says like conquer the nation, love and energy. The love and energy made me think of Vash from Trigun, which I was like, which Shima and Vash, some similarities. And then the one thing just says rice. His Yakuza jacket just says rice on it. Like, that'd be like me wear the denim jacket that said hamburger, you know? What up, Mitsumi-chan? And she's like, what's gotten into you? Why are you being a delinquent? And he's like, whatever, it sucks. I hate this life. Bye. I'm dropping out. I'm just feeling it. And then the thing about it is, it's not the fact that he's leaving school that worries Mitsumi, but the fact that he's leaving her. The fact that he wouldn't be in her life anymore. And she's trying to rationalize in this episode, am I mad because he's skipping school and he's hurting his chances for his future? She's like, no, that's not it. I don't really care. It's his life. He does what he wants. But it's the fact that she doesn't want him not in her life. And that's love, damn it. That's love, damn it. So anyway, Shima's out again. And she's like, is he okay? And she's wondering if he's in some kind of trouble. But she's like, what if he stops coming to school? And that's when he shows up. Now, the low pressure system giving him a headache, as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, because I get headaches a lot. And I used to get like really strong migraines. I don't get as strong of migraines anymore, but I get headaches a lot more frequently. And a lot of it is like the low pressure system. Like anytime there's a cold front or like a storm is coming in, it will give me, like I woke up today with a headache and I didn't take anything because I was like, I know it's the storm front. It's going to pass as soon as the front goes through. And it did. So it was just like not even worth it at that point. I'm like, you just kind of get used to it. So Shima may be one of those type of people that is a little bit sensitive to those things. And maybe that like the rainy season just gets onto him. And he's like, oh, hey, Mitsumi-chan. And then he wonders if she's mad at him. She's like, let's call it a day. That teacher. I love it. I love just like the little things of the students asking if they want to study together and do things like that. It's really cute. And then, of course, the perfect job for them to sit in the dark there and staple the papers together. And he asks if she's mad. And she's like, I'm not mad. But she's like, did you really skip school just because you were sleepy? And he's like, yeah. I like that he's honest. I like he doesn't lie to her. He's just like, yeah, is there a problem? Like, the rainy season sucks for me. And he's like, the rainy season, I get to not feeling good. And that's also kind of was making me think of depression too, like seasonal depression. We think of seasonal depression, we think of winter and people being isolated in the wintertime here in the Midwest. And that's a big problem here is that it gets so cold and snowy and people get isolated, they get seasonal depression and it gets, dark early. But, it being rain season could do the same thing for him. It's a season. So maybe he does get depression from it. And he just is like, I just don't feel good. And she tries to be like, well, you're missing out on your important exams. And he's like, I guess. And he's like, all I care about is passing. And he's like, was that all? And he's trying to tell her, he's like, look, I don't really care about doing well in school. I just need to pass. He's like, who cares, And he doesn't know that she's thinking in that moment of him dropping out. And she's like, oh my God, I don't want you to drop out. And is this a sign that you're going to? And she's like, well, I care. And he's like, what's gotten into you? And she's like, you should care more about yourself and your reputation. People keep saying you're out enjoying the nightlife and stuff. And that's when he's like, did somebody tell you that? The thing about it is, he's kind of hard to read because he does this passive-aggressive stick where he doesn't get mad, but he just kind of like, what'd they say? Like, just, he's so hard to read. And I'm like, He's like, and she's like, oh, well, and which confirms that they told her that. And she's like, oh, I just heard it. And you can kind of tell he's a little like, she's like, I heard it in passing. And she's like, term finals are important for first year. And she's like, maybe they are to you. And she thinks for a second that he held a grudge from back when, she got onto him on the train, which was not the case. He was thinking about, the rumors, and he doesn't want her believing the rumors. And she's not believing the rumors. She just was trying to say something different. And then, of course, they have that miscommunication, and he says he's sorry, and she just kind of runs out. And you can tell he's just like, damn it. Like he's like, did I do something wrong? I do like that Mitsumi, though. I like that she gives him the benefit of the doubt and tries to think about the situation and goes, okay, now let's be real. was he really mad at me, or did he think that I was mad at him? Am I reading too much into this? Like, I like that she steps back and thinks of the situation and is like, what am I doing? I like that she rationalizes through it, right? And meanwhile, while she's rationalizing through it, she's like, I'm probably jumping to the wrong conclusion. We cut to the other side of the city where we see him at his friend Chris's house. Oh, Chris Coon. Everybody needs a Chris, right? If you watched Ace of the Diamond, everybody needs their own personal Chris Coon. Well, I like the guitar, though. His room's really nice. But he's spacing out, and he's like, was I holding a grudge over it? And I like the one friend studying, like the actor friend is studying. He's like, why are you looking for advice? Why are you here? He's like, Sosuke, when are you going to go home? And he's like, hear me out, Chris Coon. And he's like, I'm trying to study. It's like, you just barge in. He's like, aren't your term finals soon? And he's like, there's this girl. We're class officers together. And the guy's like, you're a class officer? And I like that Sosuke's like, don't make fun of me. Don't make fun of me. Leave me alone. He's like, forget it. I should go. And he's like, no. What about the girl? And he said, she's super straight-laced. She couldn't believe I skipped school for a silly reason. And the guy's like, she yelled at me and said it wasn't good. And I like that the guy in his head is picturing like the class rep type A. He's like, so I snapped back at her in this passive-aggressive tone. So he's self-aware of how he answered her. He knows when he gets that way. And he's like, it probably hurt her. And he's like, yeah, you need to cut that out. I think it's like, it makes it seem like behind that smile, you're mad as hell and it's scary. Yeah, I like the friends, like, you should probably, be more honest and, show your emotion. Don't just hide it behind a passive-aggressive smile. He's like, but isn't that unusual for you, though? He's like, it's always in one ear and out the other. What I find so fascinating about it is, Shima, the way that his friends kind of talk about him, he seems like he's so aloof and that he's just kind of like skating through life and just drifting through, which, in a way makes him kind of seem like a flake. But his friends have such a strong like concern and loyalty to him. Like his friends from middle school, they all like hang out with him and stuff and seem like he's not a bother. And this guy lets him come to his house apparently a lot. And he's just kind of like, you're kind of just like in one ear out the other. I think it's the fact that Shima comes across as seeming like he's flaky or that he's passive aggressive. But the reality is he's not a jerk. He has a really good heart and he's a nice, kind person. He just has all of these, like, just these little flaws that make him a person. And his friends, it's kind of one of those things where his friends have been like, the boon of being your friend and your positive qualities outweigh these qualities that could be negative. It is more beneficial and for us to be with you than to not be with you. And so we're going to support and care for you. And I kind of like that because I feel like a lot of times when we're in friend circles, we focus so much on being perfect and like having no flaws around our friends because we want our friends to like us no matter what. The reality is that's not possible. You have flaws. And if they're your friend, they're going to support you and be with you regardless of those flaws. And they're going to work past them because the parts of you that they do like are worth it more than the flaws. And so I like that. I like that this is kind of like, well, why would his friends put up with that? But it's because Shima's a good person and he's worth it. Oh, and he's like, yeah, it's weird. And I think the friend also alludes to the fact that Shima is this concerned about his relationship with Mitsumi is a sign it's a relationship, right? Or could become one. She's the best friend I have among the girls, so I didn't want to hear it from her. And I think that in some way is maybe Shima kind of being in denial, where he's like, yeah, it's just because she's my best friend among all the girls, and I don't want to hear it from her or her to think that way. And I'm like, is it because she's your friend? Or is it because you like her, but you don't quite realize it yet? Are these two Bakas going to be oblivious? I feel like these two Bakas are going to be oblivious. Well, maybe not Mitsumi. And he's like, well, you should tell her that. And Shima's like, I don't know. He's like, I like that he says here, I don't see the point of the clearing air talk. Which he's like, I don't feel the point of like, basically he doesn't want to dig up the past. He doesn't want to dig things up again and relive them. Which I'm sure relates to more than just Mitsumi. I'm sure that relates to other aspect of his life as well. He's like, He's like, if it's going to be fine, he's like, if we're going to be fine, then it's going to just be fine. He's like, and if it's not, then there's no point in me talking about it because it's not going to change things. Which is kind of and I know my dog is like trying to play with me right now, which is kind of a defeatist attitude, but that seems to fit. I like that the friend is like, Chris is like, you seem very detached. But, he's like, and he's like, okay, I'm going to bounce. Can we also talk about these posters that are on the wall? The best posters in the world. One is like simultaneously parodying Queen and the Bohemian Rhapsody album art, but also parodying Cats by being Pomeranian Rhapsody. Oh my God. And then the other one is maybe my favorite. I want this poster so badly. It is making fun of the Mario Brothers and the Blues Brothers by saying the International Game Brothers. I need that poster. I want it so bad. I want that poster so bad. That's amazing. I love that poster, the International Game Brothers. And then Chris says the fact that you're talking about any kind of relationship is headline news. Meaning that Shima is not the type of person to develop a relationship with somebody. And if he does, it's a big deal. So I feel like in that sense, him being friends with Mitsumi and being close friends is just as potent and powerful as being in a relationship. Yeah. So anyway, Mitsumi does not sleep well at all. She looks like a zombie. I love that she's like, everything's fine. And when she opens up the locker, she's like, just her expression again. Her in Death Note would be absolutely hilarious. I need this crossover. But her face, and he thinks that she's mad at him. So they just talk about the weather, and she's like low, strangled voice, frizzy hair with the humidity, the not smile she wasn't ready to give. He thinks she's mad, and there's just so much more to it. And I love, she's so cute, and she's like, I don't know what to do. And Shima's just like, okay. I think in all reality, physically, Shima is totally my type. Blonde hair, tall, blue eyes, done. Absolutely done. Check, check, check. But personality-wise, I don't know if I would be interested in somebody like Shima, somebody that's passive-aggressive and so laissez-faire. That's not my style. I feel like my friend group, I'm usually, believe it or not, the more introverted one in a large group setting. So I usually like to associate myself with my friends who are very extroverted and loud and joking and have these big, giant personalities. I feel like those are the type of people I get drawn to. So I don't know if Shima would be my type. I don't know. But I don't know. The mysteriousness would be to deal with, right? And then Mitsumi's like, okay, what do we do about this? About not talking and being standoffish. And I love that she kind of just like follows him around watching. And then that's when Igashira is like, did you guys have a fight or something? I like that Igashira is just like onto it. Igashira is a little bit sadistic because she's like, I'm just going to let you solve this, Mitsumi. You're the one that gets the lucky privilege of being near him, so you figure it out, okay? I think that's hilarious, but then I like that Igashira is not going to be Mitsumi's like comfort emotional support friend, but then Yuzuki comes up and wraps her arms around her, and Kunami's like, you want snacks? They're like the emotional support squad, whereas Igashira holds her to a little bit more of a realistic standard, like, no, here's what you need to do. And she's like, this Mitsumi tries to do this whole like, it's about the friend, not me, but it doesn't work out. And then I do like that Igashira says, look, did you do anything to hurt him? And Mitsumi's like, no. And she's like, did he say anything to hurt you? And she's like, no. And I like Igashira says, then maybe there's no need to bring it back up and apologize. Maybe, you need to stick to your guns. And I think that's important because I don't think you should make concessions for people. I think you should stick to your laurels and you should say what you need to say. And I kind of like that Igashira tells her, being like, look, you need to think back. Did you say everything you needed to say? And if not, you might have to have that conversation with him and let him know. And I'm like, I like that Yuzuki and Kunami are the emotional support friends, and Igashira is the one realistic friend that's like, you should also do this. I like it. Like, yes, please. And that leads her to like deciding to go up to Shima and talk to him one-on-one. I like that Yamada and Mukai are like, Have fun. And Shima, when they're climbing up the stairs to talk, Shima almost runs away. He says what he wants to. He's like, yeah, I'm apologizing. Okay, this is awkward. But Shima definitely, I like the foil that Shima and Mitsumi are, because Shima seems like the flight person. Shima is flighty. He's like, I don't want to deal with this conflict. I don't want this. Bye. And he will like flake out. And Mitsumi is not a flake. She's the opposite of a flake. She's like, no, we're going to double down and talk through this, and I'm going to say my piece. And it makes for a really good combination, because he can help her realize she doesn't need to be so serious about everything, and she can help him like not run away from everything, right? And so he's like, well, I came off too harsh and I didn't mean to. And he's like, I have some things to do at home today, so are we good? Which is a lie, because he tells her afterwards, he's like, I really don't have much to do at home. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And that's when she says to him, she's like, about yesterday. I love how she phrases it. She's like, I got on your case about exams, but the truth is that I was going to be bored here. I want you to come to school because it's boring without you around. That's what I wanted to say. And I think that honesty, I don't know if Shima's ever had somebody tell him that they want him around, that it's boring without him. I think his friends like don't turn him away, but to actively seek him out and be like, I don't want you to go. I want you to stay here. Like, that's so sweet. And then he tells, and when he grabs her hand, I was like, oh, that is some Sasaki and Miyano business. And I was like, are there going to be geometric shapes anywhere? But no, they're heterosexual, so there's not going to be shapes or geometric patterns anywhere. No. So, yeah. If you'll notice, unless it's a BL, there ain't no geometric shapes flying. No. But he does grab her hand, and I was like, oh, like the instinctual, he doesn't want her to go. And I think he didn't even realize he was doing it. And he's like, oh, whoops. But, y'all, the episode's called Drizzling and Flickering. The drizzling being the rain, and the flickering being this flame of their relationship kindling. I'm like, yes. So good. And he's like, my family's uninvolved right now, which is a very passive-aggressive way of saying it, that they're not there. And I like that he kind of like is like, I can talk to you, right? Is this cool? And then it's like, I like that he kind of steels himself and holds himself back, being like, do I tell her about myself, my family? But I want her to know. And he says, we don't often eat dinner together, which to me would be a perfect setup for her inviting him over to dinner. I'm just saying she could invite him over to dinner to eat with him. I'm just saying that would be on my brain in that moment. I'll often stay the night with a friend from my acting days. And the third year of middle school, I'd stay out late due to cram school. So I feel like he's like, look, I did cram schools to get here. That's why I was out late. That's why all these rumors have come about of me. And I stayed at a friend's house. So he's like, what I'm saying is that I'm not as much of a mess as you're worried that I am. That's huge. Because he's like, look, he's like, I know that I miss school and I skip. And I don't have a very big home life right now. He's like, but it's not as bad as you think it is. He's like, it really isn't. He's like, I'm not a delinquent. I'm doing my thing. And I've got some stuff at home going on, but it's not bad. I'm not a mess like you think I am. He's like, I do skip here and there, though. And I like that Mitsumi is like, is that so? And he's like, well, my point is, and I like that he thinks about it. And he's like, I wasn't mad because I thought you were bugging me. But I hated the idea that you took those rumors about me seriously. Like, he doesn't want her to think those things about him that aren't true. And she's like, oh, I didn't. I just heard it. And he's like, it's fine. I get it. I'm used to people making up wild stories about me. But Mitsumi-chan, oh, I don't want you to believe them. Don't even listen to them. I love that he does it. He values her so much and cares about her so much. He doesn't want her to believe those stories. And she's like, fine, then I won't listen to him. And then when he smiles, and he's like, I haven't made up this dramatically with anybody since grade school. And his smile, like his genuine Labrador golden retriever smile, and the light shining on him, it's like a beacon. And then Mitsumi's like, oh shit, nope, this is, uh-oh. And then him just smiling, saying there's nothing wrong with it. And she's like, why do I feel so vulnerable and I want to run away? And that's when he says, this is the first time I've ever been real friends with a girl. And I'm like, oh, how can you look at her with that face? No! Oh, no! I'm like, girl, oh, girl, ah. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And I love that she calls Mitsumi and she's like, okay, I know I feel like I'm in love, but you can be friends and have this feeling. It's totally fine to just be friends and have this feeling. And I love that she's like, I think you can feel that way about a friend too. She's like, what? Oh my God. Girl. Girl. It's just absolutely wonderful. I love this moment of both of them. I don't think Shima-kun realizes he's in love with her. I think Mitsumi's just now realized, and she's like, no, we're just friends. It's fine. But I don't think Shima thinks it's still a friendship, but I don't know if it is or not. I don't know if it is or not. I just love how this show handles it. It's so good. It's so wonderful. I absolutely love this series and the way it does characters. It's wonderful. So I can't wait for episode 7 now. I'm so excited, but I want to hear your thoughts down below, what you all thought of this episode. This one has me so excited for episode 7. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait to watch it. We'll wait and see, but in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Skip and Loafer.